It's been a long time coming.
When I was about 9 years old, my dad was diagnosed with diabetes. The doctors told us that his diabetes was treatable, just as long as he made the steps to check his blood sugar levels, eat healthier, and exercise. But later, we learned that he also suffered from kidney failure, which wasn't nearly as easy to fight. What kidney failure meant was that he had to go through dialysis about 4 times a week for 7 hours a day, where he was attached to a machine that essentially did the job that his kidneys had failed to do. The machine kept him alive, but really only for the sake of being alive. Yes, he was conscious, but dialysis took up a lot of time, and when he wasn't doing dialysis, he was tired from the dialysis. This, of course, meant that he couldn't work or play basketball or even spend any significant time with his kids. As a result, I was resentful of the situation. My father was someone who I had always admired, and I had to watch as his body betrayed him and he was left defenseless. He had worked so hard his whole life, immigrating to America, getting his education, and all of a sudden, it felt like none of that even mattered.
Change gonna come.
Then, my sophomore year in high school, a woman who lives in the state of Washington, a woman who I will never know, donated one of her kidneys to my father. The donor chose to remain anonymous, although we did exchange letters for a bit. Aside from blessing my father with a second chance at life, she taught me one of the greatest lessons I've learned. She showed a sense of responsibility for my dad, a man who she had never met but was able to have compassion for. What she did transcended race, gender, or status, and was about kindness in its purest form and the interconnectedness amongst us as human beings. It was a certain kindness that I knew I would have to embody every day since it was so gracefully brought onto my life. After my dad's transplant, I became more involved in my community. I started volunteering at the Northwest African American Museum. The exhibit running at the time was called Checking Our Pulse, and it focused on health in African American communities. Through working with the exhibit, I learned that the major diseases that plague Black communities are type 2 diabetes, HIV/AIDS, and cardiovascular disease. Not only that, but I learned that many cardiovascular diseases, obesity, and diabetes all disproportionately affect African American communities, largely because of socioeconomic status. I realized that there were a lot of other families battling the same diseases that my family was, and I wanted to be able to do something that would end that. I knew that in order to one day help and educate my community on health, I would first have to educate myself. I decided to apply to the UDOC program as a first step in hopes of pursuing a career in medicine. I hope to one day be a part of changing the health disparities of African American communities so that less families are affected by diabetes and kidney failure.
Oh, yes, it will. It's been too